Hey guys, how's it going? My name's Amanda, and today I wanted to talk about why it is pertinent to work out on top of being an athlete in your sport, right? So, for example, I'm just going to use myself as an example, right? I do kickboxing and Muay Thai as an athlete, right? I've been training for, however many couple years. And even though I have to go train sometimes like 4 hours a day while I'm in fight camp, it doesn't excuse me from doing strength training on my own. So I think everyone has heard of the Bruce Lee saying of I'm not scared of a man who knows 10,000 kicks. I'm scared of the man who has done one kick 10,000 times, right? Where that whole meaning of being good at your sport and like getting reps and becoming a master in your sport comes from, right? And Bruce Lee just put it the best. He wasn't the first person to think about it, right? But everyone knows that increased reps means increased experience. Increased experience means that you're better at your sport, yada, 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 right? But the thing that we really don't think about, that we don't tie into this, right, is the other half of what I do, which is personal training, right? So my sport, kickboxing, is a very violent, like hard on the body sport, right? Like you can come home with like, I don't know, bruises and cuts and sometimes concussions. And if you're not taking care of yourself and you're not taking care of your partners, your fight career will be very, very short. So luckily, I found a really good team, really good coach, which understands the importance of not just training, but training smartly, and then also taking care of your body while you're going through this. So, number one, always have a strength program that you're following. If you're outside of fight camp or outside of your your sports fight camp, right? Normal Muay Thai fight camp is probably about like 6 to 8 weeks long, depending on the size of the fight, right? But if you're outside of your fight camp, you should be getting stronger, right? Don't really focus on explosive movements and endurance training, right? That'll come when you're in fight camp. When you're outside of fight camp, you're trying to get stronger. You're getting back to that base level of what your weight is, what your walking around weight is. But you want to be training those muscles that you don't normally use all the time, right? I'm in my stance. I'm in a, orthodox stance, and I'm always going to have that twist in my body, getting more used to doing reps on one side than the other, right? Like if you're doing baseball, you're always going to hit swinging the bat on one side. It's really rare to see somebody be able to do both. And then even more rare for them to be able to do both and excel at both sides, right? A lot of places I've noticed will not train both stances. They'll usually force left-hand or southpaw fighters to switch to orthodox, and that's it. You're only going to train orthodox, right? That's a very old school way of thinking. But the premise was, if you are training, let's say like 30 minutes in one stance, 30 minutes in the other stance, you're only really getting 30 minutes of practice with your body doing, your jab on your left hand, your jab on your right hand, right? Instead of other people that you'll be competing against, let's say you're competing, right? They're getting that full hour. So they're literally getting twice the amount of time throwing their jab, throwing their jab, throwing their jab than you are, just because you're switching stances. So if you're doing kickboxing, my own personal opinion is, if you're doing kickboxing for a fitness perspective, change your stances every once in a while, right? Do one class in orthodox, do the other class in southpaw, because you don't need that proficiency that a high level athlete that is actually competing in that sport needs to get, right? All you need to do is make sure, you're burning calories, and you like kickboxing just because, it's better than running. Totally get that, right? But switch your stance. You really, really, really don't want a muscle imbalance. Like, that's setting yourself up for injury way before you ever get injured. Okay. Another thing is going back to being an athlete, you want to make sure that you're also taking care of your nutrition, right? If your nutrition is garbage and you're just eating fast food and you're not paying attention to like your macros, you're not taking a multivitamin when you're in fight camp, like you're going to have a bad time. um, you want to make sure that you're giving your body the correct amount of proteins and fats and carbs, and then all those little micronutrients such as like zinc and vitamin A and vitamin D. So that way you don't get sick and you don't have to take time off of training, but also so you don't get injured. Like put that at the top of any list that I ever make is like number one rule, reach your goals. No. Number one rule is don't get injured, because if you get injured, you won't be able to reach any of your goals, right? So make sure that you are talking to someone about your nutrition. If you haven't talked to anybody, talk to me. I know what I'm doing. Okay. So next thing is we've covered going over your strength training outside of fight camp. We've talked about your nutrition. That's all year round, right? You can have some off days, right? But just make sure an off day doesn't turn into an off week that turns into an off month, right? Like just because you're not in fight camp or in training for your competition doesn't mean that you just throw everything to the wayside. You still need to stay healthy and you still need to stay at a certain weight, because otherwise you're just like shooting yourself in the foot. But make sure you're also getting enough sleep. I know that's a big one. I'm also one of those people that try to stay up late at night to finish projects or wake up early in the morning and try to squeeze as much out of my day as I can, right? But when I'm in fight camp, those are a non-negotiable. I have to get at least 8 hours, and my body sometimes is like, you know what? We're actually going to get 9 hours of sleep today. And I can't do anything about it, because sleep is where you recover, right? If you aren't sleeping correctly, you're not recovering correctly. And again, leads to injury. So let's go back, rewind a little bit, and let's talk about strength training while in fight camp. That's all up to your coach, right? But usually what happens is like inside of fight camp, you go with endurance building, like agility work. You're still doing your training. By the way, this is all on top of your regular training schedule, right? This is why some people can't make it as an athlete in their sport, right? Is they don't have the time to give you 4 to 5 hours a day every single day. How many people do you feel can barely go to the gym twice a week, right? Just because their life is so scheduled, like super tight, and they literally don't have the time to do it, which that's okay. Everyone has priorities, but I also was told that everyone has the same 24 hours in a day. So however you want to spend those 24 hours, that's where you're going to go to, right? I feel like fighting is my passion. Fitness is something I'm super passionate about, and using mobility, like ever since I started going down this mobility trail and, learning about the different muscular slings in your body and how they all connect together in order to make this fully functioning body that you have. I just like never went back. I've seen people be able to progress and get rid of their body pain that they've had for years in just 2 weeks. And before I started doing functional mobility, like I would have thought that was a whole bunch of BS, right? Like 2 weeks, you can't do anything in 2 weeks. Like even like the fitness gurus up at the top of the ladder, they always say that it takes at least 3 months to see any type of progress from your fitness journey, right? But here's my thoughts on the functional mobility key and why you can see such quick results. So let's say you come to me, and I'm going to use this as an example because I just was talking to somebody about it. You come to me with plantar fasciitis, right? So many people have plantar fasciitis. If you don't know what that is, it is the bottom of your foot. When it becomes inflamed, there's like a band on the bottom that's called the plantar fascia, right? The fascia is like pretty much like a net that wraps around your muscle and keeps everything in place, right? So if that part of your foot is kept immobile, or you don't walk enough, or you don't have the correct footwear, you can develop something called plantar fasciitis, which is the inflammation of the plantar fascia, right? And this is super painful. It makes it really hard to run or jump, do pretty much anything that you would enjoy, right? And usually what people do is they take an ibuprofen. They'll maybe at the most like kind of roll it over a foam roller or a lacrosse ball, and then just call it a day and just be like, this is just who I am, right? I have plantar fasciitis. It's genetically in my system, right? It's not true. So this one person, this client that I had, came to me and was like, I have plantar fasciitis. I'm going to have it for the rest of my life. I'm super scared to get a heel spur because I know that heel spurs come from plantar fasciitis, which is true. If you have a plantar fasciitis for long enough, right? Think of it as like a really, really tight rubber band, right? So if like you have plantar fasciitis and it's pulling and it's pulling and it's pulling on the membrane that surrounds your bone, eventually what's going to happen is that membrane separates away from the bone, and your body is like smart dumb. And instead of trying to fix the tightness of the plantar fasciitis, all it does is, oh no, it sees that there's a space where there's not supposed to be a space. So what does it do? It fills that space in with calcium. So that's how you get a literal spur in your heel made of bone, which will eventually be reabsorbed in weeks to months, but it's very painful. That is sometimes only fixable by staying off your feet and hoping for the best, or surgery. So if you can avoid heel spurs by any means necessary, do that. So all you got to do is correctly roll out the bottom of your foot with a lacrosse ball by tracing down each line of each ray of your feet, right? If you find a tender spot, kind of like flex and extend your toe, or and then keep going, right? You need to do that every single day until your plantar fasciitis goes away, right? Not only that, but because your foot is not being used correctly, you probably have really bad shoes, right? So get some more of those barefoot shoes, the ones that are a little bit more flexible in the sole. And then also roll out your calves with a foam roller, and you'll be right as rain. That's all you got to do. So if you need any help with that, let me know. I've literally helped, however many people fix their own plantar fasciitis, and they come back to me and they're like, I haven't had heel pain in XYZ amount of days, right? And I'm like, shh, it's okay. Let's focus on this next thing, right? So it's not like a nail in your coffin, right? Like you can go on and you can live a life without plantar fasciitis, right? Especially if you're an athlete, right? Like if you're barefoot, like bouncing around, like boxing or kickboxing, any of those sports where you're doing a lot of like martial arts bouncing, you definitely don't want to get plantar fasciitis in those. So anyways, kind of went on a little bit of a tangent. However, I think this is really, really important to tell you guys that, one, as an athlete, I think it's very, very highly recommended. I don't know how else to like underline, underscore, bold, circle, right? Make sure you're doing your functional movement training on top of your strength training, on top of your regular training schedule, right? And if you're doing all of that, you also need a recovery day, at least one day a week, where you're just sitting for an hour, rolling, aiming for those different muscles in the different like structural slings. I can say that 10 times fast, right? But there's different structural fascia slings in your body, about 4 of them, and they all move together. They all sync together. So aiming at making sure that those are all strong, nutrition, make sure you're sleeping well, and then also dealing with your plantar fasciitis, which apparently was a side note I wanted to talk about. But yeah, So let me know if you guys have anything else that you guys want to talk about. I am here to educate you. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.